Welcome to this first installment of What You Need to Know for Audio Engineers. Um, this first part, I feel like I need to preach a little bit and say that the first thing that we need to know as audio engineers, we have to have some perspective. And there's no better way to have perspective when you're mixing musicians than to be a musician. So learn an instrument. It's not a requirement in church for the audio engineer to be a good or even serviceable musician, but it is certainly really helpful. Also, in-ear monitors. It's helpful to know as an audio engineer, just from an empathetic standpoint, what does it actually feel like to use an in-ear monitor mix to play an instrument, to produce to produce a part in the band. Um, I think that my perspective is greatly helped by being someone who is an instrumentalist, and not just someone who's playing one instrument, but I play different instruments. I have done keys, I've done bass, I've done guitar, um, and I've done a little bit of vocals, although it didn't go so well. Um, you know, but having that perspective of what does it feel like to have an in-ear monitor mix that's good, also what does it feel like to have an in-ear monitor mix that's bad. That's part of what went wrong when I tried vocals that one time. I had a terrible in-ear monitor mix, couldn't hear myself, couldn't hear anything. It was an awful mix, and my performance suffered because of the in-ear monitor mix. That is something that's really important to realize. A bad in-ear monitor mix is going to cause the performer to suffer, but a good in-ear monitor mix is going to help that musician produce good results. It's going to be a singer who can hear themselves, who can hear the other singers, who can hear the guitar, who can find their pitch, and they have the click track and they know the guide. They've got the lyrics. Everything works together seamlessly. That's what you want. And it's important to have those experiences. Let's just set up a hypothetical. You're in rehearsal, the acoustic guitar player is struggling, and they're audibly struggling. You can hear because they're playing poorly. So you get on the talkback and say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. acoustic guitar player, what's wrong? Is there something wrong? You're not finding your rhythm very well, or maybe you're on the wrong capo completely. You're playing in the wrong key. Something's wrong. What's wrong? And maybe they'll fess up, and you say, well, I can't really hear myself, or they'll say, well, I can't really hear the click, or I can't really hear the piano player. The piano player is what I want to listen for, or I can't really hear the singers. Any of these things, they'll say something, and it's going to be something wrong with their in-ear mix. You hash that out, you fix it. You say, okay, well, what do you need? You need more click, you need more piano, you need more vocals. Great, let me fix that real quick. And the next time you play the song, immediately it's like, oh yeah, now they found their rhythm. Now they know that they're playing with the wrong capo. Now they know what they're doing, and suddenly they can play a lot better with a good in-ear mix. That's a hypothetical situation, but a very real hypothetical situation. And it happens all the time for us during ear checks, when we're between songs. We go around, we raise hands, say who needs ear adjustments, and they say, yeah, I need way less of this, or yeah, I need way more of this. And then they're like, oh, thank you, finally it's fixed. Now I can do my job so much better because my ears have been fixed. I can't overstate the importance of in-ear monitors. Really important to understand, and it's great to have that perspective as the musician on stage who is actually using it, to know what it feels like to have a good mix, know what it feels like to have a bad mix. So, music theory. This is all tying into perspective as a musician on stage. Um, but there's a real practical side to this as well for someone who is just a listener of music. You don't have to learn an instrument to learn music theory. You don't have to be someone who's performing on stage with in-ears in to understand music theory. There are some real basics that I think is just essential for everyone to know. Um, and there's a series on this channel called What You Need to Know for Worship Musicians. That's what the band is knowing. That's the music theory stuff that the band should really, really know. They should know that before they get on stage, before they get to rehearsal, before they start practicing. You know, the music theory is essential for the musicians. It's also essential for the audio engineer to understand. To understand the major scale, to know what it sounds like, to understand major and minor chords, to know what they sound like, to understand voicings of chords just by asking them, just by understanding, the music theory of what's happening in what the musicians are playing, but also how to adjust it to get a better result out of the mix and to get a better result out of that instrument. Because they might just think, well, this is what I practiced. It sounded good at home when I was playing by myself, but then they come to rehearsal and there's a bass player and there's auxiliary keys, there's synths, there's guitars, there's singers, there's all these other things going on, and suddenly that left-hand part doesn't work so well. And that's something that you don't get until you get to rehearsal, and the audio engineer tells you, hey, your left-hand part, you need to change it. It's too much. Right, so there's real practical music theory knowledge that is kind of essential for audio engineers to know to communicate to the band to get a better result. And this goes beyond, chord voicings and scales, but also rhythm. All of the tonal instruments, the guitars, the stringed instruments, the keys. Everyone is locking into the rhythm of the drums. And if that's not happening, then it's a real mess. It's a mess because of the rhythm. So you need to be able to automatically hear, oh, everybody's kind of all over the place with the rhythm here. We kind of need to make some adjustments. And maybe just get on the talk back and say, hey, can everybody just listen to the drummer and play with the drummer instead of playing whatever you want to? It's hard for people to hear that they're doing a bad job, but, for the music to get better, for the mix to be better, that's an adjustment that you have to be able to tell people. And you are the one with the perspective on that most of the time. You as the audio engineer, you are hearing everyone, and you can hear everyone equally. So you are the one to say, hey, we got to look at the rhythm here. And to do that, you have to understand the time signature, the note values, the subdivisions of those note values, the subdivisions of beats, and all of these things. Right. So as far as essential music theory for audio engineers, go to the stuff that you need to know for audio for worship musicians and learn about scales, learn about chords, and learn about rhythm. There's 3 videos on rhythm, and you probably only need to do the first 2 videos on rhythm. So that would be time signatures and note values. Really kind of essential stuff. Learn music theory, and it will go a long way to helping you make better mixes and to communicate better with the band as well. Last thing, and I'll try and wrap this up really quick, just know the music. There is a reference track that goes out for each song. You need to make sure that everyone knows what that reference track is so that everyone is trying to reference the same track. But you also need to know how that reference track sounds. Because again, the band is going to be expecting something certain. They're going to be expecting something very specific out of the multi-tracks coming from Ableton. But they're also going to be expecting to, for their part, to be playing some part in that. And if you don't know what the electric guitar is supposed to be doing in the song, then you're not going to be able to mix it properly, and you're not going to be able to get a result that the band is expecting, and that's going to throw kind of a wrench in things. It's going to make it hard for people to trust you, and people need to be able to trust you to make a good sounding mix and to understand the music. That's kind of the number one thing. Is everyone needs to trust each other. You need to trust the musicians to play the right notes. They need to be able to trust you to make their right and sometimes wrong notes sound good. So they need to be mixed properly.